Okay, it's 2 o'clock Singapore time, so I think we're going to start bang on time. Welcome and thank you very much for joining us today for a really interesting topic, and I've been looking forward to this session for a long time, actually. So today we're going to be focusing on AI ethics and compliance and how we can all navigate the really complex new digital world that we're living in. And I'm delighted to be presenting today's session in association with the Asian Bankers Association. My name is Pekka Dare. I'm the president of the International Compliance Association, and we're delighted to support the work that the ABA does in supporting its members around the region. And also delighted to be bringing you to the session today in association with Hawk AI. And Robin, who is joining us also from Singapore, Robin Lee, who is the General Manager for the Asia Pacific region with Hawk. And Robin, we've known each other for many years now. Great to see you again. Always good to chat with you. And of course, I should mention, I know you're going to say a little bit about your background, but again, great friend of the ICA and author of a specialist certificate qualification in AI for compliance professionals that we'll talk about later as well. So Robin, great to see you. I'm going to ask you to set the scene and give us a bit of a presentation really for the first sort of 35 minutes around this really important topic. And then what we'd like to do is open up to questions from the audience. So please do say hello wherever you are in the world in the chat. Let us know whereabouts in the world you are. Let us know your name and whereabouts in the world you are. So say Robin and I are both in Singapore at the moment. And we'd love to hear your questions. So please do put your questions in the Q&A and we'll endeavour to leave at least sort of 15, 20 minutes at the end to field any questions you have. Give us your comments, your thoughts, your questions. It's always great to hear from you. So look, this is such a huge topic. We're seeing a real seismic movement now in the adoption of AI, machine learning in financial institutions, and particularly banks. And when I travel around the world and the region, I see some really interesting developments. But with that, there are also coming some interesting challenges. We're seeing new regulatory frameworks around ethics and AI solidifying all around the world. And of course, we're in an arms race with organised criminals using AI, particularly generative AI, to do nefarious things. So there's a lot to talk about today, and we've got someone best placed, really, I think, to guide us through this slightly, exciting yet also slightly scary new world, and that's Robin. So, Robin, please, I'm going to pass the baton over to you. Do you perhaps want to introduce yourself to the audience, and if you want to share your screen, I know you've got some interesting slides to talk through as well. Over to you, Robin.
Sure. And first and foremost, thank you so much to the International Compliance Association, the Asian Bankers Association, and yourself, Pekka, for having me here today. It really is an honor and a privilege. Let me, as you suggested, let me start by sharing my screen. So one moment. Let me just pull that up. Okay. And you can see my screen now. So as mentioned, my name is Robin Lee. I'm the General Manager of APAC for Hawk, and today we will be covering AI, ethics, and compliance, navigating the new digital landscape. Really, really exciting stuff. Just in advance, just wanted to share with everyone that I have attempted to make this as accessible and exciting as possible. Just apologies in advance for any pop culture references, humor, etc., but engagement really is the name of the game for these webinars, and it's something that I constantly find challenging and in a positive way. Okay, so in terms of what I'll cover, I'll give a brief introduction. We'll then talk about AI in general. We'll level set and bring things back to first principles. We'll then do the same for ethics. And then we'll take a look at some of the ethical dilemmas in AI specifically. And then what I thought would be nice would be to really home in on the financial crime space, which is where I play in today and where Hawk plays in today with respect to AI. Follow it up with some insights / predictions, and then we'll go over to the discussion after. Okay, so from an introduction perspective, just a little bit about myself. I was born in this country here. I spent 10 years in this country here. I've been in Singapore now for about 14 years, but my parents are from this country here. So a lot of people wonder why I look like Jet Li and sound like Harry Potter. I hope that really explains that fact. Okay, I started my career in Silicon Valley. I was there for 6 years. I then went to Wall Street, where for 4 years I worked in the hedge fund industry as an analyst covering technology solutions. So during my time in Silicon Valley, my AI exposure or what we call AI today was pretty significant from the perspective that I focused on a company which has now been acquired twice and is now under 3M, where we focus on the electronic medical record. And part of my role was actually developing the algorithms to access the data to that records to those records, as well as some of designing some of the applications that revolved around that data set. Yes, and then went to Wall Street, as I mentioned, 4 years, worked in the hedge fund industry as an analyst covering technology companies. And then since then, for the past 14 years or so, I've been involved in the the compliance, AML, financial crime space in a number of areas. I've been in the education space, I've done the startup space, I've done the data space from my time at what's known today as LSEG, formerly Thomson Reuters. So I was responsible for the strategy for WorldCheck. For those of you who are familiar with WorldCheck, within Southeast Asia. And then I've also done the software space with a company called Napier AI, and most recently on the public space with the US Department of Justice and their public-private partnership focusing on the fintech space called the Fintech Sector Public Dialogue. Today, I have a number of roles. I've written a couple of books, including one on RegTech. I teach at these institutions here. I am also the APAC Vice Chair for the Global Coalition to Fight Financial Crime, as well as sitting on the RegTech subcommittee for the Singapore FinTech Association, and the job, I guess, that pays the bills, which is being the GM of Hawk for APAC. Okay. So a little bit more about Hawk specifically. We're a German software company that's roughly 6 years old, and with APAC being with Singapore being the APAC HQ, but you can see we're internationally based. And what is it that we do exactly? The way I like to describe us is we are the iOS of financial crime. We're a platform similar to your phone, where we have apps that sit on that platform, as well as a big data lake underpinning that platform, and therefore the ability to have lots of AI and machine learning functionality, including what you see here is one of our core competencies. Okay, so that's a little bit on the introduction. Let's talk about AI itself, and the business focus on AI has been intense. We see some quotes here on the left by Google, Facebook, Baidu, whose CEO is also called Robin Li, but the Li is Li. And then on the right here, you'll see the acquisition rate of startups as well. And look at this on the right here. You'll see 29 over the course of 11 years. Apple bought 29 AI startups, Google 15, Microsoft 13, Facebook 12. These are not small numbers, ladies and gentlemen. And then, of course, we have all these developments, but are they any good for us? And we have this debate that's going back and forth. And on the top, you can see where Elon Musk is very apprehensive of AI and where it can go. And then on the bottom, you'll see how Mark Zuckerberg is quite enthusiastic about AI. Okay. But let's level set here and ask ourselves, what is AI exactly? What is it and what does it mean? So I kind of just did a bit of Googling around and Wikipediaing around, and I found an official, a computer science and colloquial definition, but wrapping it all up together, having like the Robin Li definition per se, I think this one sums it up best, right? Using machines to act and think as humanly as possible. Okay. The main drivers behind AI, and why we're seeing it so much today, and why it's being so talked about today, and why the technology has progressed so much today, I put it down to three things. Okay. Number one, data is the new oil. And we look at the amount of data that's being generated today, it's exponentially getting larger and larger and larger over the years. All, whether it be the handheld devices we use, or the hardware, the new hardware products that have emerged, all of them are collecting data. Okay, whether it's your thermometer, whether it's your weighing scales, etc., etc. And so whether it's your social media applications like Facebook, etc., the amount of data that is being collected is just increasing exponentially. And so we need to process these large amounts of data. And on the right here, you'll see the advancement in GPU technology has actually superseded that of CPU technology. So just in layman's terms, a GPU is a graphics processing unit. Companies like NVIDIA and AMD manufacture these. They have been the advancements that have happened in GPUs from both a power saving as well as a processing power perspective has just developed significantly. We've seen some really, really significant gains, especially on the cloud side, where cloud servers are starting to leverage GPUs. And so as a result of that, the ability to crunch large amount of numbers has just become super prevalent as of late. On the bottom here, I guess the last one that I think is interesting is the evolution of programming languages. So stuff like Python is really, really accessible to everyone now. And so your ability to leverage Python, which is a data science focused programming language, also has helped the cause for AI. Okay, so AI has actually been around since the 50s, and how I would describe it it's been around since the 50s, and what's happened since then, as many different techniques have emerged. And what will happen is that something will happen. A particular technique will emerge. It will gain companies will get a lot of funding. There'll be a lot of new companies emerging, etc., etc. And then it will peak out as the technology will peak out at a certain point and then crash. And that's what we call an AI winter. And we've had two of those two major ones since the 50s. But the latest drive that has really, really pushed AI is up here, machine learning, and as a consequence of that, generative AI as well. But if you have a look here, there's actually quite a number of different techniques involved under that definition of AI. Okay, I have to mention generative AI. It's definitely the new hot thing, especially in our industry. But if you have a look here, I've put a definition up. The drivers I've already spoken to. The drivers are software and hardware. So I've kind of spoken to the hardware part already, but on the software part, we have GPTs. So for those of you who are unaware of what the Chat GPT stands for, the GPT, in Chat GPT, Generative Pre-trained Transformer. And basically it's a machine learning algorithm that can handle large data sets without much effort. Okay. And then the second element is large language models, right? These are models with billions/trillions of parameters that can get worked because of the hardware stuff that we see here. Okay, let's move on to ethics, ladies and gentlemen. And again, very, very basic definition here from the Oxford Dictionary. I don't want to spend too much time on ethics. I think we just need to have a good idea as to, what kind of discussions are involved with ethics. And so what I've done here, ladies and gentlemen, is I've put some theories. I've grabbed this infographic, which I think really speaks really well to it, where you see the different theories within ethics, the sub theories that emerge from that, and the very basic questions that articulate those sub theories. So what is my best long-term interest? What will bring the greatest overall good for all stakeholders? What is my duty to others considering these factors here? Am I being an exemplary person? And am I showing care for others in my community? Okay. But this is probably the meat and potatoes of the presentation, ladies and gentlemen, the dilemmas. Okay. And the best summary I've seen of ethical dilemmas when it comes to AI specifically, so bringing it all together, that is, are the ones that we see here, summarized by the World Economic Forum. And what the WEF has done is they've identified 9 different um, um, topics that really, when brought together, really summarize that whole ethical challenge when it comes to deploying AI. And we're going to go through these in a lot more detail, but in a nutshell, unemployment, inequality, humanity, artificial stupidity, racist robots, security, evil genies, singularity, and robot rights. So let's explore these one by one, ladies and gentlemen, very quickly. I am conscious of time, Pekka, so don't worry. This isn't going to take long. Okay, unemployment. What happens after the end of jobs? And what I've got here is 3 pictures. Okay, the first one is of what we call a baby Bretzer. So for those of you who aren't aware of what this baby Bretzer is, it's a machine where you put the powder for baby milk. You put the powdered milk in, you put the water in, it heats the water to the perfect temperature for the baby, and you just press the button and it pours the perfect bottle of water. That's really efficient and a really good example of how efficiencies can be gained with AI and technology. Because arguably keeping that water to that particular temperature, that's AI, right? It's being monitored and ensuring that the water stays within that set temperature. Okay. Then it can get to the point where we're super lazy. So this is a scene from the movie Wall-E, where in the future humans have become lazy, have the screens in front of them, and have become so lazy they can't even walk. And so need these these chairs to chaperone them around. And then last but by no means least, this is an image from the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So what I'm trying to say here is why work, right? If the machines are doing all the day-to-days and we don't, they're doing all the work for us, then we can live that life like Ferris Bueller. So this is a movie about a guy who a high school kid who takes the day off school and does whatever he wants, right? So yes. Inequality. How do we distribute the wealth created by machines? And the kind of futures that have been suggested as a result of this could be are diverse, and these are extreme examples of that, right? So on the left we have Star Trek, where they have actually gotten rid of money in the future, and everybody lives for the betterment of humanity. And then on the right is this is from a movie called Elysium, where the world has basically gone to one big mess. It's desolate and dystopian, and all the rich people, the 1%, have gone to this donut where any disease can be this donut spaceship, sorry, where any disease can be cured. Everybody gets the best clothes, the best life, etc., etc. Humanity. How do machines affect our behavior and interaction? So on the left here, it's a very familiar scene, right? You go to a restaurant, and I go to restaurants quite a bit and just observe people. And this is quite the common view, right? Everybody's just on their phone, talking to their phones. I've even been in a situation actually where I've seen people sitting in a restaurant and they're talking to each other through their phones. They're not even interacting in person. And I guess a really extreme example of that would be The Matrix, right? And virtual worlds. And we really saw the significant emergence a couple of years ago on the metaverse, right? So that's probably where the puck is heading in terms of our interaction. Artificial stupidity. How can we guard against mistakes? So this is a poster from a really old school TV series called Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. And this is about a 20th century man who's an astronaut. He goes up into space and is frozen in time. And then he gets rescued in the 25th century. And when he gets rescued, it's a sci-fi movie. It's kind of a take on Star Wars, where Earth is at war with an alien race, and somehow when he lands, when they just shortly after they've rescued him and revived him, they just happen to have an attack from these alien spaceships, and so they rally the Earth defense. This guy gets allowed to jump into one of the spaceships to fight the aliens, even though he's just recovered like 10 minutes ago. And they all go off into space and they're fighting the aliens, but the spaceships are on autopilot. And they end up losing. I mean, they seem to be losing pretty badly. Then Buck Rogers is like, forget this, switches it to manual and takes out the whole alien fleet with his one spaceship. So, depending too much on technology and what have you could have its negative consequences. Racist robots. How do we eliminate AI bias? And the most famous example of this is we've seen credit firms in the US discriminate against Black people and score them lower when it comes to credit just based off their race. Okay, and because the data that came before that is biased towards that. Security. How do we keep AI safe from adversaries? So this is the fourth Die Hard movie. And for those of you who are action movie fans and have not seen this, basically a terrorist group takes advantage of everything like the traffic light system, the airports, etc., and basically hold I think is it Los Angeles or is it the whole of America or something like that to ransom based off that, and so it takes Bruce Willis to come in and sort that out. Evil genies. How do we protect against unintended consequences? This is from the Planets of the Apes movie and the new series. And in the latest one, if you look at how the virus is made, it's actually through computers, i.e. AI, right? And then the result is humanity gets taken over by the apes. Singularity. How do we stay in control of a complex intelligent system? So this is from the Terminator movies. I think most people have seen this. It's pretty obvious, right? That with Skynet becoming so intelligent, so smart, it renders humans as obsolete, and so the machines take over the world. Robot rights. This is an interesting one, right? How do we define the humane treatment of AI? And I don't think this is as prevalent now, but the signs are there, ladies and gentlemen. And so the first example I've got here is of Facebook, right? Facebook, knows who you like, they know who you hang out with, they know who you're friends with, and so they target the ads towards you and target the content towards you so that you're constantly engaged on the platform. Okay. Another example of that is what you see in the middle here. This is a Tamagotchi. So for those of you who are too young to remember this is a virtual pet, and you have to feed it, you have to bathe it, clean its poop, etc., right? And when these first came out, people were really, really emotionally attached to these, and I remember several instances where with like some of my cousins, for example, where their Tamagotchi died, and they really got caught up in that. Okay, so there's that aspect there, and then this is the most extreme example and this is from the L337 is actually from the Han Solo Star Wars movie, and in that movie we actually see a revolution of robots against humans, right? So where the robots feel that they were treated like slaves and they should have rights as a result of that. Okay, bit of an extreme one, but I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, we are heading there. Actually, the most recent one, I got a message today sharing an article on character AI being sued for by some of its users over depression. So they would have they would create a virtual girlfriend. A gentleman in the US created a virtual girlfriend on character AI, super attached, and then something kicked off, and he's claiming his depression costs against character AI for them in engaging him in such a manner. Okay, so let's focus now and talk about the financial industry itself, and specifically AI in financial crime. And if we take a look at financial crime methodologies today, if I was to take fraud and AML and look at the different applications that you see, this is a fair summary, right? KYC, KYB, are you who you say you are? Client screening, did you do anything wrong? Payment screening, are you sending money or receiving money from sanctioned entities? Customer risk rating is the ability to risk rate your customers. STR filing your STRs, your suspicious transaction reports. Fraud, and within fraud, we have an element of transaction monitoring. We have device aspects like device IDs and behavior and actual behavioral metrics as well. Adverse media, transaction monitoring, sifting through transactions and looking for suspicious activity, and customer insights as well. Okay. The challenge that we see in financial crime is a lot of those applications are old and can't scale out accordingly because of the way they're architected. What you saw, each of these applications are disparate and function independently of one another. The data quality, availability, accessibility isn't always there. We see a lot of false positives because of the limitation of those systems. Cloud versus on-prem. Politics is an argument. Newer Frankenstein offerings. So a lot of the applications that we see out there aren't written by the vendors. And so what they'll do is they'll take someone else's solution, stitch it together, and a whole bunch of other people's solutions, stitch it together and offer what we call Frankenstein products. Mindset within the FI themselves, and the fact that with financial crime, we are up against the human mind. The human brain is the best computer on earth, ladies and gentlemen, and fighting that, we have still got a long way to go. That being said, when it comes to these applications, AI is being deployed all over. And so within these applications, anything that's OCR is optical character recognition. Machine learning is what ML stands for. Deep learning is what DL stands for. Neuro-linguistic programming is NLP, and Gen AI is in green. So just very quickly, OCR, optical character recognition, that's taking a picture with text in it and identifying what that text is. Machine learning is going through large data sets and apply training tasks that you conduct on those data sets over and over and getting it better and better at doing that particular task. Gen AI, I've already defined what that is. And deep learning is putting all the data in one place and then asking the algorithm, what do you see from this? What interesting insights can you draw from this? Okay. So there are challenges, and I've listed these challenges here, and I'm not going to go through them all, ladies and gentlemen, but you can see the highlights here, right? Data privacy. And by the way, general AI challenges are written in red, and Gen AI specific challenges are written in green. And we can and if anyone wants a copy of these slides, please do reach out to me. I also have a copy of an AI procurement checklist that people can get a hold of as well. So please do email me if you would like a copy of that too. But if you look at the highlights here, right? Data privacy and security risks, regulatory compliance risks, bias and fairness concerns, model accuracy and reliability. Remember what I was saying about who's writing the code? You might not even know that, right? Operational risks, transparency and explainability, costs and resource allocation, dependency on technology, ethical concerns, and skill and knowledge gaps. So what this leads to, ladies and gentlemen, is when we talk about AI ethics, it's essentially not too dissimilar to compliance, right? Ethics is the precursor to compliance. And I would say the same is very true for AI governance, AI risk, and AI compliance itself, right? So, and this is why we understand the ethical challenges with AI. We get better at conducting those respective tasks. Okay, so just a couple of very quick insights in terms of what we're seeing next on the AI in the AI financial crime space. I'm seeing a lot more people. So we've already heard a lot about deep fakes, right? Which is a form of adversarial AI whereby the bad guys are creating a deep fake image of somebody and projecting that to the end user. So, for example, I could be talking to you here as Robin Lee, but what you see on your screen is Jennifer Lopez. And there was a case in Hong Kong earlier this year of someone who thought their CEO was calling them, and they wired $25 million to someone else and got scammed on that. Okay. I've already spoken to adversarial AI, and Pekka mentioned that too, right? Bad guys using AI. And the best example I can think of that is what's happening with the scam farms in Southeast Asia. Previously, regular individuals were being kidnapped, brought over to these scam farms, and made to conduct scams. The criminals have taken it to the next level, promising Stanford computer science PhDs, high-paying jobs in Singapore with a quote unquote stopover in a Southeast Asia country. They'll get kidnapped, their passport will get confiscated, and they get made they get forced to create these adversarial AI algorithms, such as the deepfake one that I mentioned earlier. Okay, I've already spoken to the metaverse. This is an interesting one, and this is on the industry side. I've heard two names for it. The first is sci-framal, and the second is sci-fi. And that is, we're already seeing fraud and AML coming together. We think cyber might be next, okay? And so you'll have this department where cyber, fraud, and AML sit together. Shared data and data sets. The co-location, so this is straightforward. More data sharing definitely helps the fight against financial crime. Co-location of public-private partnerships. We're really seeing that a lot on the fraud space. An example of that being the Singapore Scam Command Center. And then the return of utilities, but this time digitized. And again, in Singapore, we have Cosmic, which I think is a good example of that. Now, going broader here, I have three possible outcomes from us, as in the humanity perspective, AI, and what we see globally. So as humans, we need to become more street smart versus book smart. Learning becomes a passion versus a chore. Work becomes more analytical / creative versus busy. Convenience / personalization becomes the new norm and takes priority over privacy. There's always a balance there, right? Especially when we replace this with customer experience. We become less emotionally attached to other humans. Okay. And then on the AI front, AI will become more and more involved in our everyday lives if it isn't already. Anyone will be able to have access to AI algorithms, and it will become easier to train them. They are becoming more user-friendly, and I can just cite this with programming, right? When I was programming 24 years ago, it really was line to product. Whereas if you look at some of the programming now, it's pretty much drag and drop, right? In some of these applications. So yes. Okay, and then let's see, new interfaces and how we interact with AI will emerge. I think I can be safe in saying that the touch screen and voice is very quickly replacing the keyboard and the mouse. And then AI will get better at creative stuff, and Gen AI is an example of that, right? Writing songs, creating movies, etc., etc. Okay, the world will continue to become smaller. Elimination / consolidation of language. I put this one in because there's this example of Google, the Google Buds, where someone is talking in Spanish to someone who's talking in Chinese, and the Buds is translating that in real time. Time will continue to become more valuable. Virtual worlds becoming more important than the real worlds. I definitely see that happening. And then this one's an interesting one. I put this in as more of an afterthought. Energy, food, shelter. So if AI and technology can come in and somehow replace all of these, whether that's solar energy here, whether that's example of Soylent, the company Soylent, where they make a meal for $1 a bottle for food, and the profits they generate from that, they were actually sending over to to needy jurisdictions, and shelter. The best example I could think of shelter is there's a company in Eastern Europe that can 3D print you a house that's 1,200 square feet, 3 bedrooms, for $1,000 US. Okay, so if that becomes the norm, then shelter shouldn't be a problem either. Okay, and then going back to the actual measures that have been taken for AI from an ethics perspective, we have MAS FEAT principles here. UNESCO has some core principles that you see here. Harvard Business Review has put out a practical guide to building ethical AI, and that's a very interesting one to read, ladies and gentlemen. But we've also had a form of regulation / guidelines, and what I try to do here is pick the 10 most significant ones that I've come across. And as you can see here, it all starts in 2016 with GDPR. The AI ethics guidelines from the European Commission are pretty interesting to go through. I already mentioned Singapore's Model AI governance framework, but in Europe, this is the big one right now, the AI Act. And the talk of the town in my industry is we're seeing many AI startups actually leave Europe for other jurisdictions because of this. Okay. And then a couple more here from the UK and the United States. Okay, so that's it from me, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of what I wanted to present. I'm just going to hand it over to Pekka to go through the next couple of slides, because this course that we put together is a really, really awesome experience, and my co-author and I worked really, really hard to ensure that we provide as awesome an experience when it comes to what you do. Sorry, what you learn when it comes to this course. So sorry, over to you, Becca.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. Really interesting and a lot to unpack in your presentation there. So yeah, look, we're all needing to engage with this topic to upskill ourselves, and the ICA was delighted to partner with Robin and his colleague and help create the new International Compliance Specialist Certificate in AI for Compliance Professionals. And it's a really great qualification focused on giving you the right tools to ask the right questions to engage in with confidence on the subject of AI, whether that's understanding about the implications for regulatory technology solutions, whether it's understanding what are the latest ethical considerations and ethical and regulatory frameworks. So when you're considering implementing an AI solution in your organization, how do you practically go about evaluating the ethical and practical and operational considerations as well? And of course, a lot of it is also thinking about the future, because this is such a fast-moving area, as Robin has alluded to. So where are we going with AI over the next few years as well? And again, the course is purely online, so you can study at your own time. Most people will be able to finish it within 4 weeks as well, but you've got up to 2 months access. And at the end of the course, there's an online multiple choice examination as well. And if you're successful, you're able to get an automatic qualification, which of course, being with the International Compliance Association, is recognised internationally, and all of our qualifications are awarded with the Alliance Manchester Business School as well. So they're internationally recognised qualification as well. So yeah, very proud of this, and it's proving very, very popular indeed all over the world. So I think we have another slide there, Robin. Thank you. If you want to click on the QR code, if you're interested there. For everyone attending the webinar today, you can, if you use the code at the checkout, if you're registering for the program that you see on your screen there, you receive a 20% discount. And if you're a member of the Asian Bankers Association, you also get a 30% discount as well. So yeah, we have a QR code. So hopefully, yeah, look forward to seeing some of you on that program and enrolling in that as well. Also worth mentioning that we've got the Asian Bankers Association General Meeting and Conference coming up. I was privileged enough to go to the last event in Nepal. Great event, really recommend it. Some really amazing thought leaders from all around the region and the world. And in this one in particular, we're going to be focused on Asian banks transitioning towards a sustainable future. And you're going to have bankers from all over the region coming in to talk about, the current areas of focus as well. So this is the 40th one, 40th time it's been held. It's in Taipei, 18th to 19th of November. And again, I know the Asian Bankers Association is delighted to invite participants in this webinar to visit the conference website at https://aba2024.tw, and I'll put that link in the Q&A as well for you as well. So something to look forward to as well. Okay, Robin, I think we've got one more slide, have we? Yes, so discussion. Let me just put this in the Q&A. I know we've had some great questions coming in as well. So look, I'm going to throw a few questions and then let's just open up to the audience's questions. So please, despite me saying that the chat was available, I understand it's disabled, so please do pop it in the Q&A. I just want to ask you one question, Robin, and this is a bit left field maybe, but I heard the term P-Doom recently. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, P-Doom. So I was listening to a podcast called The Coming Storm. Really excellent, I'd recommend it. But one of the things they were talking about was the view of, AI experts, AI engineers, AI evangelists about the probability that AI will be an existential threat to humanity. And the percentage, the higher your P-Doom percentage is, the higher percentage you believe AI is likely to cause an existential threat to humanity. And you mentioned the concept of singularity, where we have, ultimately maybe one totalitarian authority or entity having too much power and bad consequences. So apparently, the average AI engineer, their level of P-Doom is 40%, which is quite high, isn't it? And then you've got people, you mentioned Elon Musk. So if I had to push you, Robin, do you have a P-Doom percentage? What level of existential threat what chance do you think it is that AI can pose for humanity?
I'm going to not dodge the question, but answer it from a different perspective here, and that is, if the P-Doom is indeed referring to a Terminator scenario, right, where the machines rise up and take, eradicate humanity, I don't have as strong a view on that, and I'm not really, I don't feel anyway that I'm in the position to give a solid answer on that. But the area where I'm concerned is the critical thinking aspect, the creative aspect, right? If I'm an artist at heart, right? I was a songwriter in a former life. I like doing a lot of writing and what have you. And I, if as a songwriter, if I take simple songwriting, right, ChatGPT is pretty good. And if it gets to the stage where your favorite artists in the music industry are singing, AI written songs, and they're not coming up with the songs themselves like Prince did back in the day, or David Bowie or anyone like that, right? Then I'll be very, very disappointed and very disillusioned as well. And if I take that one step further and apply that to the financial crime space, right? As financial crime fighters, we do need to have that aspect. We do need to, because we're figuring out criminal behavior and criminal activity, which is, just as intuitive, right? And if we leave it 100% to the machines, then I'll be very disillusioned on that front as well.
Yeah, I see there's an open letter published by Tom York from Radiohead and something like 300 leading artists and musicians raising exactly those concerns. Okay, but look, let's go to some of the questions, and please do pop your questions in the Q&A. Can I start with this one? I think it's interesting. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but the question here is, there's much talk on how AI could improve our lives, but is there quantitative results or measurements, or has there been a study on how AI has indeed improved the way we supervise financial institutions, how financial institutions have served its customers better, etc.? So are we seeing, in particular, obviously we're focused on banks in this session with the ABA, Robin, but Is there much evidence or analysis of the benefits that we're starting to see in banking or financial services in general? Are you aware of any? You mentioned underwriting and insurance decisions. I know we talk about financial and possible concerns, but any thoughts?
Okay, so there's a little bit to unpack there. So in terms of using AI to supervise financial institutions, I have not seen anything like that myself, but maybe I can go back and have a look at. I mean, if anyone's going to have anything like that, it'll be like BIS, right? Or those kinds of institutions there. So not that I'm aware of, but don't quote me on that. And then how financial institutions have served its customers better. I mean, this whole stuff that I mean that's there's been stuff that have been carried over from the tech space, right? The like automated NPS scores for customer success, NPS is net promoter scores, et cetera, et cetera. And I see a lot of the fintech companies apply stuff like that. Um, I'm just trying to think. I mean, from the financial crime space specifically, which is where I sit today, I guess the the best one is like the false positive reductions when it comes the effectiveness of false positive reductions with respect to transaction monitoring and screening. And there's a number of reports done on that, whether it be from the big four, whether it be the consulting companies, or even the vendors ourselves have some of those numbers there.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I mean, look, I think the I'm aware of big regulators starting to very much look at using AI in terms of automated, and we've seen a move in the last few years around the world to automated regulatory submissions from FIs. I know that the FCA in the UK have automated a lot of that. So obviously, having that huge pool of data, of course, regulators are looking at this in terms of how they can supervise more effectively and look for patterns.
No, no doubt. I mean, with soup tech, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
But in terms of reports or studies, I have not seen anything
yeah,
personally.
yeah. I haven't either. I haven't, but it's a good question. Thank you. Okay, let me go back. Let's see what else we've got, Robin, for you. There's a question here, actually. Can AI be biased? How so? So you mentioned that obviously some of the challenges, concerns. So talk us through what we talk about potential for AI to be biased. Where does that bias come from, Robin?
So if I was to bring it back to first principles, when we talk about the bulk of quote unquote AI that we talk about today is machine learning. Okay, and what is machine learning exactly? It's an algorithm. You put a bit of data into the algorithm, or you put some data into the algorithm, and I'm really breaking this down in layman's terms here, right? The algorithm processes that data through a task and then spits out the result and learns a little something along the way. Then you put another bit of data, another set of data in, and it does the same thing and gets smarter and spits out a more accurate result. And it will keep doing that over and over. So the more data that you put in, the smarter the algorithm becomes. And hence, what I said earlier in the presentation about data, the amount of data being produced exponentially increasing, that's how these algorithms become smarter and smarter and smarter, is because we have so much more data available. So that being said, if that data has some sort of bias attached to it, then the result that gets spit out is going to incorporate that bias into it. Hence my example with African Americans in the US getting discriminated against for their credit rating, because in the past that certainly happened, but today not so much, right? And then this is an interesting angle on adversarial AI. There are bad guys out there doing what we call data poisoning. So they'll deliberately manipulate the data that's being inputted into some of these algorithms to manipulate the result that gets created from those algorithms. So we do have challenges from that perspective as well.
Okay, thank you. So there's a question here as well, and you mentioned some of the specific applications we're seeing in banks, particularly in the financial crime space, and I've certainly seen some really interesting developments there. But the question here is, what role does AI play in enhancing the accuracy of transaction monitoring systems for AML compliance? And I guess before you answer that, are we seeing kind of the death of or a movement away from rules-based transaction monitoring now? And you've seen, some of the big world's banks using, trumpeting the reductions in false positives that they've had from adopting AI solutions. So what's your take on that question? What is the role of AI in making us better at transaction monitoring for AML?
Okay, so taking it back to first principles here, right? How did we do things today for transaction monitoring? It's predominantly through rules, right? And the easiest example I can cite is any rule over US $10,000 needs to get flagged. Okay. We've had a fundamental challenge with rule-based systems, not from the fact that they generate a lot of, well, on one part, yes, they have generated a lot of false positives, but on the other hand, it's the inflexibility of the systems themselves. Okay. So for me to change that $10,000 to $50,000 with the traditional systems, what have I got to do? I got to go back to the vendor, say, hey, I want to make this change to $50,000. The vendor will send someone over to hand program, hard code that rule change into the system, right? It could take up to 2 weeks. And then once you've done it, you might be like, you know what, 50,000 is not capturing enough now. Let me bring it down to 40,000. And then you've got to go through all of that again. And each time you change that rule, it's a $10,000 cost, 10,000 US dollar cost, right? So it gets expensive very quickly, and it's a very inefficient way of doing that, of tuning that rule systems. The newer solutions out there are able to enable the compliance officer to do it, right? So the operator can just sit there and do it themselves without going to their internal IT department or the vendor and do that, and you're able to make that change there and then. In addition to that, we have what we call a sandbox environment where you can take either a copy of the full data itself, the data set itself, or a sample of the data and test the rule changes out in that sandbox environment. And then when you're finished with what you have, you press a button and then everything gets updated automatically. Okay. So rules base is traditional. It has challenges, but you'll be surprised, number one, at how much false positive reduction you can do when you have control over your own rules and can test them out accordingly. Okay, now let's move to the AI part. So this is even before AI, right, Pekka? So when we get to AI and transaction monitoring, this is where things get interesting as well, right? Because we have different angles in which we can approach this. We can do an overlay over the existing rules-based system and eliminate the reduce the false positives using machine learning, right? There are systems out there that will apply a deep learning solution to identify false negatives, right? Which is picking stuff up that you should have picked up, but didn't, through some sort of insight or some sort. And then there are solutions out there which take it a whole angle further, where you're not looking at where transaction monitoring is just a part of the puzzle, and you're doing customer monitoring overall versus just a single piece of the puzzle. Now, to answer the question on AI solutions, I mean, we're definitely seeing a lot of vendors that are AI only, right? And including Google, right? Who have an AI only transaction monitoring solution, and that's been a big hit amongst HSBC in particular, right? And has been approved by regulators internationally.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting thoughts. So we've got a lot of questions coming in as well. One question here is, do you see, I've lost it now, but effectively the question was, do you see, from John Yo, thanks John, Robin, do you foresee Asia to follow Europe in introducing a similar AI rule? So you talked about the AI Act and obviously the potential for regulatory arbitrage and pushing maybe some vendors out of Europe. Do you think Asia is going to go down the same route?
Asia is the most fragmented place on the planet. I tell this to my my management team at Hawk all the time, right?
Yeah.
How are we thinking Australia is so different to how we think in Japan to Indonesia, etc., etc. So my short answer to that is fits and spurts, right?
Yeah.
It'll be dependent on which part of Asia we're talking about here, right?
Yes, yeah. As you say, it's a very disparate. I mean, we're seeing, as you mentioned, some of the initiatives that we're seeing in the region, but it's very much jurisdictional by jurisdictional. So, okay, so
Let me just add to that. Like Malaysia has an AI Act coming
yeah,
out at the end of the year, for example, right? Whereas in Singapore, it's guidelines right now. So
yeah, yeah,
it's just an example of
yes,
the differences, and we're right next door to each other. So
yeah. Okay. Monica, thank you, Monica. Monica Cura has asked, how do you see the long-term evolution of AI in terms of ethics and responsibility? Um,
I mean, as the algorithms get smarter and smarter and smarter, I think that, and we already see this, by the way, in the technology companies, right? So you go to Google, you go to Salesforce, there are people going around with the job title AI ethicist. And I think this is going to hit financial services within the next, 5 years easily.
yeah.
We'll have AI ethicists working in banks.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's already happening. I think the FCA consulted last year on whether there should be a mandated role for banks and FIs of AI ethicists. Okay, thank you. Here's one from Yin Chang. Thank you, Yin. How will current AI developments transform work? You mentioned already that perhaps we're freeing up the opportunities to focus on more value add roles, more creative thinking, more critical thinking roles. But the question is, how can humans really future-proof ourselves and make sure we can still be relevant when AI achieves AGI? Or is it even possible for AI to achieve AGI? Sorry, AGI, do you know that stands for?
Artificial general intelligence,
So,
where as smart as us.
right, fully kind of equivalent, if not superior to humans. Yeah, okay. So what are your thoughts on that? How can we future-proof ourselves? Can we?
Um, so I first and foremost think we do the stuff that we really go hard on the stuff that AI isn't so effective on today, right? Which is the soft skills, right? So the people skills, the ability to interact, to you know sit down and have dinner with someone without looking at their phone. Um, we so that's one aspect. The second is I in an ideal world, you would have a and I've said this a couple of times now, like a RoboCop approach where it's humans and AI working together, rather than a Terminator approach where it's 100% AI. So that'd be the second aspect on that. And then what's the other part? And make sure we can still be relevant when AI achieves. So yeah, so that answers that. And then is it possible for AI to even achieve AGI? Um, you know what? That I don't have an intelligent answer to that because we're still on that journey, and where we've gone with machine learning and subsequently Gen AI, we haven't peaked on that yet, right? So do I know if it's going to top out and we'll have another AI winter after? Not really, but um, I think that we we just future-proofing ourselves is understanding it and understanding where we need to put the guardrails, right? And ensure that this thing doesn't get too out of control.
Well, there's a linked question to that, if I may, which is, I think, a really good question, which is what would the role and responsibilities of compliance departments regarding AI in the banking industry be? Um, what you mentioned, the role of perhaps AI ethicists and banks, but where and what should a compliance function be doing in regards to this whole topic, Robin?
So I think in first and foremost, see where AI is going to be part of your day to day, right? So we already spoke about transaction monitoring. There are AI applications that can take a regulation and spit it out into, you know, layman's terms, and then subsequently from that spit it out into how you would apply those regulations to your day-to-day operations, right? And I think I think in general, right, that slide I put up with the questions that you should be asking really are, complement the role of a compliance officer. And simultaneously, if you again, I'm not just putting it saying this is a promotional thing, but I really did sit down and think hard when it came to putting that checklist together. Um, not that as compliance officers we are, tick the box types, but I think it's a good guide as to what you should be looking out for and the questions that you should be asking when it comes to leveraging AI applications.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I'm conscious of time, Robin. We're at the allotted finish, so we like to be punctual. Some great questions. Apologies, we've not had a chance to answer. There's some good questions about the use of AI in electronic KYC, for example, which is a topic I've looked at quite a bit. Happy if you want to reach out to me generally to have a discussion on that. Got some thoughts there as well via LinkedIn, perhaps. And there we go. Robin's put his email up. I know we've had a couple of people asking for your email, Robin. And do reach out to Robin directly if you're interested in getting hold of a couple of slides and indeed the checklist that Robin's mentioned as well. Great. So yes, again, thanks, Robin.